Such a good turnout for an early morning after such a big event last night, so well done on everyone here. So today I'm quite fortunate to be surrounded by a wonderful panel of experts from a very diverse background, and we're going to be discussing the challenge of delivering a circular economy, which is quite a juicy topic. It's quite a broad topic. And just to get a bit of a feel of who's in the room, who here's heard of the circular economy? Great. And who here knows exactly what that means? Ooh, okay. All right, well, hopefully we'll all go on a journey together and learn a bit more. A while ago, I ran into an ex-colleague, and she works in the circular economy space, and I said, when people ask you what the circular economy is, how do you respond? Because that's something I personally struggle to respond to, even though I've got the title of Circular Economy Manager at City of Melbourne. She said, very cleverly, I prefer to say what it isn't. I was like, oh, okay, what isn't it? And she's like, well, it's, that sort of take, make, waste, single use, and everything else outside of that model is circular economy. And I was like, brilliant, I'm stealing that, but I will give her kudos. So now I'll get each of the panel members to just introduce themselves, talk about who they work for, what they do, and how it intersects with the circular economy. And first cab off the rank is Aaron.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. I hope you've seen our stand out there. We've got a beautiful big wood stand out there, Redirect Recycling. I'm in a really unique position because I've been in the waste industry for quite a few times. I've worked for Ramondas for 8 years, built the first tunnel composting facility in Port Macquarie, worked for Australian Native Landscapes. I worked at Kimbrickie as a CEO for 8 years on the Northern Beaches, and a lot of recycling, a lot of reuse. I always thought circular economy was the new word for sustainability, because 5 or 6 years ago the whole word was sustainability, so I thought it just changed. But my unique position now is that I got offered a role in the board group of companies, and they're major manufacturers of kitchens and all the types of particle board and manufactured boards for flooring that we sell to Bunnings daily. We turn over about $900 million a year. And John and Michael that own the companies, they're private industrial, said to me, look, we need to get wood waste out of landfills, going to landfills and degradation causing, obviously, CO2 emissions. We want to start putting that back into manufacturing of wood waste. And I said, mate, it's going to be a hard slog. You need facilities, you need networks, you need the product to go back into Oberon. And within 2 years, we've got about 120,000 tonne diverted from landfill already. The target is 300,000 tonne. This is the type of timber that's always in landfills in all of Australia. It's engineered, manufactured timber that doesn't have a home. So this is a real circular economy solution for us, because it can be redesigned, put back on into houses, back into kitchens, manufacturing. Once it's finished, it can be put back into production again. That's what I think circular economy is about. So I'd like to share a few more things later on as we go on.
Brilliant, thank you. And next up we've got Claire.
Thank you. So I'm Claire Kneller. I'm the Managing Director of RAP Asia Pacific. So for those of you who don't know who RAP is, we're a UK headquartered charity that focuses on driving the shift towards a circular economy, which sounds very grand. I head up our Asia Pacific office. And essentially we work across 3 main areas, so food systems, plastic packaging, and textiles, because we thought, why do one really hard thing when you can do 3 really hard things all at the same time? And the way that we do that is through kind of 3 pillars. And this applies to all of those 3 areas. So we work with governments, because setting a policy context that encourages greater circularity is really critical. So everything that Omar was just talking about, for encouraging reuse, for thinking about how you incentivize design for circularity, setting that policy context and figuring out how you use policy, legislation, tax incentives, other financial mechanisms to drive that is really critical. So we do a lot of work in that space. But then we really recognize that you can set policy and that's great, but really it's businesses that do the implementation. It's industry that has to change the way that it works. And so we facilitate whole sector collaboration. So here in Australia, you might have seen Mark's panel yesterday around the Australian Food Pact. So that's that exact model where you bring the whole industry together and you say, these are thorny problems that no one business can solve by itself. We need to collaborate across that supply chain and figure out if a problem's happening down here, actually the root cause of that problem is way up here in a different part of the supply chain. How do we fix that? And getting businesses together. And then the third pillar, and again, because we thought, why just do two hard things? Let's just throw in the third hard thing, is getting us all to change our behavior. So consumer behavior change is a really critical element of driving that circular economy. Vina, you just asked the question, like, how do we get more people to go and buy secondhand clothing, secondhand goods, changing our behavior? How do we stop wasting so much food at home? 30% of what we waste, of all of the food waste in Australia is from our homes. And no one sets out to do that. No one says, oh, it's fine to waste food, it doesn't matter. Of course not, but there's a whole suite of behaviors that contribute to those to that waste happening. And so we want to figure out, okay, how do you change behaviors? How do you change social norms to make it so that the thing to do is go to an op shop and actually it's stigmatized to buy new clothes, for example, or you never waste food, or you always recycle properly. So that's how RAP works. Can share some more examples in the conversation.
Thank you, Claire. And we've got Hal.
Good morning, everyone. Hal Dobbins, the good fortune to work for quite a progressive, well-led local government, Lake Macquarie. So not Port Macquarie, Lake Macquarie, near Newcastle. So look, we've got a reputation, I think, as a council that punches above our weight from a regional council point of view in advancing some pretty innovative policy service delivery outcomes. Back with our FOGO introduction reasonably early, 2018, through to climate resilience planning and climate adaptation planning, development controls that aren't very popular in flood-affected areas. So we're doing some great work. And Lake Mac kind of kicked off its circular economy journey in 2020, and through the depths of COVID, really managed to build a lot of momentum when this conversation was starting to really heat up as an area of focus. We developed Australia's first local government circular economy policy and framework. And in the last couple of years, that framework's been proven really successful. And looking in our own patch about how to integrate CE decisions in our strategies and council decisions in projects, in processes, is really trying to penetrate through the business. So there's some good work going on there. And then on the flip side, working within the Hunter Central Coast Regional Waste Group and other groups within the Hunter, created some pretty good traction through a number of, I guess sort of data-centric projects, but we've got to work at this as at a collaborative scale. So I think probably the coolest and most innovative thing that's going on right now with Lake Mac and the Hunter area is this Circular Economy Living Lab, which I think is probably the first one of those that's been set up in Australia that I'm aware of. So it's a partnership between Lake Macquarie Council, our economic development company, Dantia, who's really quite instrumental in bringing that collaboration together in the region, and the University of Newcastle bringing that research capability into it. And so the cell has got a number of projects kind of on the go, and a few more kind of in the wings around low carbon road building. So looking at what local governments kind of do, that's where we started. Where can we affect some real change? Low carbon roads, the procurement piece. We introduced this kind of interesting concept called Planet Price. I'm not sure if anyone's heard of that, but it tried to put an ecological and social impact procurement decision-making lens across our procurement decisions. So that's some interesting work that we're working on. And there'll be a few others that might come up within the conversation. City Scan, I guess, is the last one. That's the real data, regional data. So it's beyond a material flow analysis. It actually dives a lot deeper into material flows and what can be accomplished in better use of those materials. Yes, I might leave it at that and pass over to Vina.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Just wanted to say very briefly at the Smart Centre at UNSW, we're basically developing a lot of that material science, which is the foundation to achieving all the things when we talk about circularity, because we know very well that, you know, at the heart of achieving any outcomes has got to be robust science and technology. And of course, to do that, you need to be able to then go back and have a look at how our materials and our products have evolved and changed. So as a society, we've been very good at, you know, making, you know, products and systems and all the complexities that go into making it more functional. So that kind of making part of it is you know, progressing. But what we're really also asking in parallel at the Smart Centre is, you know, do we really fully understand the unmaking of products? Because if you understand the unmaking and you break it down to the fundamental elements and molecules, then what you've really done is preserved every element of what's present in these products, so that that unmaking journey then allows you to take it back up into a remaking journey. So in a way, it's sort of acknowledging that products will always evolve and change. I mean, we only have to look at electronic devices, but then, you know, there's so many other products that we use. So I guess part of what we need to acknowledge in all of this is the science, the technology, and of course, you know, the basic implementation. Again, a lot of this implementation of new ideas is not easy. And if you're going to make that happen at an accelerated pace in Australia, I think, to me, partnerships are going to be absolutely critical. And, you know, the work that we're doing with Peter at Shoalhaven, our industry partner, Kandui Technologies, who basically is, you know, championing a lot of this work and collaborating with people like Peter, and then on a whole sort of bigger scale, our global sort of impact that we can have through the kinds of technologies that we know are so critical. So when the world talks about decarbonization, in thinking about the bigger picture, it's about looking at alternative and more sustainable materials to manufacture all of those products that sometimes we do take for granted. The fact that we use different kinds of, you know, metals and polymers and ceramics. There is a whole smorgasbord of materials that we use, but how do you achieve decarbonization? Using clever science and technology, and of course acknowledging the partnerships is what makes it happen. We can do all the fantastic research in the labs, but unless and until we're able to partner up with really champions like Pete, you know, we're not going to achieve the kinds of outcomes that you know, the world needs to see. So that's really, we're just humbled to be a part of that collaborative journey at Smart at UNSW. Thanks.
Thanks, Vina. Yeah, so my name's Peter Windley from Shoalhaven City Council, and I guess where do we fit in the whole circular conversation? I think it's best described as that we just provide the heavy lifting. We're sort of living in the here and now, and with the hope that the circular economy gets going, and that would, you know, it releases pressure on landfills. We own and operate 10 facilities across the Shoalhaven. It's a, you know, great part of the country. Some would say the best. It's a very unique part of New South Wales. We've got, you know, a lot of isolated communities, and so therefore waste and recycling as a concept is challenging. And we've chosen a path to, you know, see the innovation, you know, look at the science, and make sure that we're into the future. We actually get to. I like to use the phrase that we intercept the trucks to the landfill, and we try to turn that into, you know, materials that provide value to us, so we can keep doing it, and not only materials now but products. You know, with the help of our partners, we're producing products on site that are 100% recycled, and yeah, like I said, we're doing little bits of heavy lifting here and there with a view to play our part in a circular economy, and hopefully it kickstarts and takes a bit of pressure off us at the bottom end.
Great. Thank you, Peter. So I'll kick us off with one question, but I'd really prefer this to be very interactive. So start your tickers and start thinking of difficult questions to ask our lovely panel. So to the panel, what is one key challenge facing Australia in achieving its circular economy targets, and what is one strategy that you believe will help us overcome that challenge?
I like giving examples, and with us, with the board group of companies, we're fully integrated. So we've got, starting from the top, we've got a whole marketing team, we've got an end market, because everything that we produce goes through Polytech. We have our own chemical company, we have our own logistics department, we have our own legal, we have our own planning, we have everything. And when it gets to the end part, we're talking about landfills and diverting material from landfills. Between 14 and 22% of material that goes in landfills is made out of wood waste, engineered timber. And that, to us when we started, because we needed the wood because of the bushfires, we were very short of fibre. Instead of using plantation timber, we wanted to use recycled content. And the biggest challenge we had, and we're lucky, is that you need infrastructure and you need funds and you need money to build these factories. We've got 4 processing facilities. We've got about 30 trucks walking floors every day, taking chip down to Oberon. We bring board back to make sure our logistics is nice and efficient. But if you don't have that type of infrastructure, you don't have that type of company, it'd be very hard when you're talking about circular solutions to start up in Australia and have that whole array of vertical integration in place. So I think barriers to entry is actually funding. I think it's facility use. I also think we treat waste still, and I saw the report yesterday, the guy was up there talking yesterday about C&I is still increasing, and C&D is not actually, in terms of recycling, is not that great. I think we're still, but personally, I think we're still lazy in Australia. I don't think we tend to push it enough. I don't think we're strict enough. We have a contamination policy at our facilities. If you bring in wood waste that's contaminated, we charge you $300. We might let you off the first or second time, but if we're going to produce a circular economy that really works, you can't have contamination. And it's up to people outside, up to the real people that are really running these places, to be hard. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And we see that every day. We've got 30 or 40 trucks going for, if it's contaminated, we load it back up, put it back on the truck, we get one of the customer services to ring them, and that's how I think we'll get ahead, is to be a bit more harsher. So I think that's another barrier to entry for its contamination, producing a good product and putting that back in, redesigning it. We have to start from the bottom.
Brilliant. So what I'm hearing is money and stop contaminating things. Yeah.
I think you've really exemplified one of the challenges that we have and a potential solution. And to me, like zooming out, the challenge that we have is that our economy is predicated on growth at any cost. Doesn't matter what the result is, growth, 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 sell more, buy more, buy more. And actually, it is feasible to decouple economic growth from resource use and still have a great life, a satisfying life, a sustainable lifestyle. And that's the massive challenge. And, on a personal note, I might say, burn the whole thing to the ground. It's capitalism. Late-stage capitalism is the problem. But working within the bounds of the economy that we have, how do we make that transition? And to me, real concrete things that we could do right now is extended producer responsibility. Proper extended producer responsibility that forces the people who are the industry who's putting that product on the market to think at the design stage about what happens to that product at the end of its life. Because currently what we have is a bunch of people designing products that come onto the market and people go, we'll just let the recycling industry sort that out for us. And the recycling industry is awesome, and they're like, guys, we can't deal with all of this stuff. It's full of crap. And it's products that are unnecessary, it's materials that are hard to recycle, it's multi-layered products. all of these things that no one is thinking about at the beginning of the life cycle of that product. So how are we designing our products for a long life, for repair, for reuse, for disassembly, and only then for recycling? And, OMA's waste hierarchy is absolutely critical. Recycling is only the second from bottom of the stuff that we should be doing. That, to me, is one of the massive challenges.
Yeah, I have to say I wholeheartedly agree with Claire on that. I think that we've got a huge design challenge, system design challenge, and I'd like to probably even go a step further back up from that and just mention the elephant that rarely gets talked about, and that's the regenerative systems aspect of circular economy. I think we're all getting really fixated. It's so easy to get fixated on solutions for the kind of system boundaries that we currently know, but from if you just look at products, for example, in product cycles and product designs, you're bringing that right back to, you're working with wood, Aaron, so you get that going for you. But it's trying to, get regenerative systems to feed the products that we consume. I don't have any clear-cut answers for that, but I just want to say I think that's a huge challenge. As far as, I guess, things that our organization's doing, probably much like Peter, you got to kind of be realistic and say, well, where does a council or a region of councils, what do we do? What's our business besides buying stuff and using stuff like anyone else, I guess, in the institutions? But that behavior change piece and being able to be that interface with the community who often looks to councils for, not just to whinge at you, but also to, be led a certain direction. So that's where I see some real opportunity with behavior change and having the, I guess, boldness. It's like the Lysella was saying yesterday, be bold, be brave, make those decisions that might be politically unpopular, have some backbone and say, no, this is the right direction, let's back this in and stop waffling on. So I think that's what we can do as local government.
I'd probably leave you all with two keywords to remember. One is performance and the other is safety. So when you think about performance, what we're really saying is, are we really getting all goods that we're getting into the country, imported lots of goods coming into the country, and it's all well and good to say, well, some of these goods are really not up to standard. We all know that. So we have to be challenging the notion that we're simply allowing a lot of lower performance goods to come into the country. Are the materials fit for purpose? Sometimes you've got a lot of synthetic polymers that go into making, for example, fast fashion. To me, there are lots of things that we need to be questioning, products materials that really should not be going into products like garments that get imported into the country. So I think, to me, that's the issue around performance. If we are really going to talk about sustainability, we've first and foremost got to say that maybe we need to be able to, that hierarchy is about refusing things in the first place. So if products are not fit for purpose, then of course, to me, we need to be able to say, no, we're going to refuse to have some of those materials that go into the products that we just take for granted that, the designers know it all. Well, but wait a minute, we can tell ourselves also what are some of the things that we should simply not be buying. So I guess that's, in a way, part of that performance question. Very well, it's a lot better to have a product that's durable, that will last the journey, so we don't keep buying more and more poor quality goods. So that's the performance question. The reason why I wanted to put safety in that mix as well, we probably don't stop and think, if I can use that same example of how a lot of plastics that then break down, when they're not supposed to kind of break down into those microparticles and nanoparticles, like, for example, from our clothes, that then has an impact on our environment. So you start to think about, when we say safe circular economy, the two things are interlinked, because if something is robust and durable and it doesn't simply just break down and produce these pollutants, then of course it allows us to define what safety looks like in the space. So I would love for us to start to talk about safe circular economy, because that then means that we're avoiding those pollutants that would form from products in the first place. So it's about recognizing that once we can acknowledge that circularity depends on our ability to make sure that a lot of these goods don't simply break down and fall apart, then we can allow for long-term viability and sustainability. And then, of course, when they do reach the end of lives or they become obsolete, they can go back into remanufacture. Because if something's fallen apart and broken down into little microparticles, well, that's the end of it, right? It's gone into the environment, it's caused pollution. It's never to be recovered back again. So we've got to, I guess, start to think that if we are going to think in a holistic manner, first and foremost, goods have to be durable, they have to be fit for purpose. And our part in all of this is to say, well, we're probably not going to buy those products, and really, in a way, asking your retailers to maybe take them back. Perhaps we need some kind of performance guarantees on our products. So if people say it's going to last a certain amount of time, it should, and if not, then they should be offering a repair service to go with products. So I think, to me, there's that really important question up front as buyers: what are we going to invest our money in? Because there is an environmental implication to things breaking down and going into landfills, and microparticles, ending up polluting our environment. So I'd probably say circularity from the lens of safety and performance would be a good way to start to challenge our own behaviors and practices.
Yeah, I agree with my fellow panel members. I haven't got much more to put in, actually, but the behaviour change piece is what really needs to happen, and I firmly believe in EPR. We look at what other countries' journeys have been down this path, and how they're way ahead of us in the circular journey and in developing a circular economy that is efficient and is safe, and behaviour change is the only way we can do that. Extended producer responsibilities is one mechanism for that, but I think we've all got to change our way of thinking and thinking more circular.
Wonderful, thank you. Might throw it to the audience to see if we've got any questions. Just raise your hand.
Cheers, good morning, guys. Joe Drusvik, Noosa Council. Vina, you touched on something that I was thinking there. At the end of the life, when we talk about recycle being at the end of the chain, but ultimately all products will come to an end of life, so recycle has to be part of that. And I heard planet price being mentioned there. I love that terminology. I think it was brilliant. Is it time, the EPR I think is great, is it time that we start to look at a rating system, a sustainability rating, much like with fridges and that, we've got the 5-star rating. Do we look at products on a 1 to 100 scale, and you've got to have a number up front so that the consumer can be aware that this product has been through a process like the EPR, and an understanding that it's been manufactured, at component level can be repaired. All of those factors come in, and we actually give it a rating from the start so that a consumer can see that this product will have a return path and won't end up, that last bastion, avoid going into landfill, so that every component, every factor of it will ensure that it goes back into recirculation as opposed to ending up in landfill.
Oh, look, absolutely. And I think this is why I was sort of making that point around performance guarantees, because I think if a retailer or a manufacturer can actually provide pathways and say, look, I mean, we guarantee that it's going to last a certain amount of time, and if it doesn't, well, I mean, there are many high quality manufacturers who will provide you that kind of repair service, but it's certainly not a common thing. So absolutely, we do need some kind of system that allows us to then hold, the people who are making money from it accountable for the fact that they're going to charge you money for a certain product. There's got to be, again, performance guarantees associated with it. I mean, I'll give you my personal example. We had one of these little handheld dustbusters that, you buy. I mean, a classic example of a fantastic, product. It's electronic, of course. So again, you start to think about what's e-waste. Now, interestingly, where you actually plug in to kind of recharge, the port itself was completely inaccessible when it kind of just got dislodged. And I literally sat there and I said, I'm going to make this thing work. But it took a lot of effort to be able to unpack it in a way that I could then fix it so that you could continue to use it. And I guess to me the point is, not everyone's got the time or the patience or the inclination. So they should be able to say, look, if you can't, bring it back to the place that sold you that item and we should be able to fix it for you. So part of this kind of service that you expect your retailers to provide, I think should be given free of cost. That's important because it incentivizes people to take it back to their retailers. And that should be part of the rating system that says we will offer you that ability to go back and get things repaired free of cost. Because, they are making a fair bit of, I'm sure, profit margin at the start. Why would you, even in that item, the dustbuster, why would you want to throw that thing away? But I think, again, if it's so difficult to repair, it'll probably end up in landfill. And I'll give an example of Paul sitting right there at the Salamander Bay Recycling when we were visiting his place. Hey, Paul, you look at those incredible parts that were there in the e-waste pile, and I think we unpacked a fair bit of that and said, oh, whoopee, there's a lot of rare earths in this, right? So, yes, it should get to the point where the device may become obsolete, but even at that time, recovering rare earths from that should be the solution. And I guess the reason why I say that is when we talk about critical materials, all these devices we're talking about are going to need those materials. I guess as a country, we better hang on to those, because if we send it away overseas, that's a resource that's going to be lost forever. So there's a bigger picture around why it matters.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'd add two things to that. So one is the design piece. Someone designed it so that port is inaccessible, and that should be not allowed. We should be designing for repairability and disassembly. I think the other thing about this element is, do you need to own the product, or do you just want access to the service that product provides you with? Do you need to own a washing machine, or do you just want to be able to wash your clothes? So there's a whole bunch of interesting models that we could shift to, things around leasing, for example. So you lease a washing machine and somebody comes and services it for you every year and repairs what needs repairing or replaces the parts that need replacing. You don't need to worry about owning that, and you pay potentially on a per wash basis or on a monthly basis. There's all these different business models that we can think about, but we're so used to saying, oh, well, that's a thing that I need, so I'm going to go and buy it, and then you have a garage full of tools that you use once a year. And how is that resource efficient? So there's a whole suite of different kind of models that we could be looking at that help us live the lives that we want to live, but reduce that material intensity of those products.
Such a good point, Claire. That product as a service model, it takes a while to get traction. I recall someone telling me that if the idea of a library was floated these days, it would not get off the ground, because we're very much in the spirit of owning things. So it's quite interesting.
So I think what we're talking about here is there's another component we haven't talked about is training young people and providing that education. And so part of what we should be talking about in STEM skills, that this is where we need to inspire the generations coming through, is that this is all part of STEM, science, technology, engineering, maths, the skill development, and giving young people the opportunity to learn and to get excited about circular economy, showing that this is cool, this is fun, and I think, to me, we can't take that bit for granted, because where are we going to get young people who are going to come in? I know we talk about, when you look at our micro factories, we get incredibly talented young people who are excited about working in these spaces. So I think in that kind of system, when we talk about repair and repair as a service, totally agree with you. But I think we can't forget that capacity building that we have to do in order to train people coming through the system.
Exactly. Does anyone else have... Oh, we've got a couple over there. Oh, sorry, there's one over here.
Hi, Ryan Collins from Planet Ark. Vena's partly answered this question, but I'm just interested to hear from Hal and Peter in terms of what do you think is needed to share the achievements and the stories and the lessons learned from your work with the broader industries outside of waste and government as well.
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess it depends on what areas we're focusing in. I mean, like often council's initiatives, and even as a region, are pretty targeted for that small area. So I guess there's opportunity for others to learn from it. I mean, forums like this are great, but we're already kind of the converted and kind of preaching to the converted. So, like I'd say, where you get local government leaders together, whether that's at a regional level through the ROCs or the joint organisations like in New South Wales, or maybe national local government conferences where you get the elected members there. I think those could be good forums, maybe to be able to bring the conversation and some expertise for folks like us who are in the trenches to bring those case studies and to try to have a conversation like this to engage with the leaders so that it starts to normalize it. And again, I bring it back to that boldness, take the politics out of it. We don't want to be called, greenies. This isn't about political lines. It's about just trying to sort ourselves out. So to try to normalize the conversation amongst leaders who I think are maybe quite parochial in their little patch. And I know even within, the Hunter, I wouldn't be talking out of school, like when we talk to our leaders about it, it's like, oh, what does this mean to our city? Is it going to be jobs and investment and whatnot in our, LGA boundary? Trying to be able to get over that and say, no, this has got a regional benefit.
Nicely put, Hal. I agree, and we've got an open source approach, and I guess it's based on attitude and all the things that we mentioned, is get out there and discuss and group and communicate, and it's really key. It's key for us. We find it drives our innovation. We find wonderful partners to deal with, and I guess any communication is good communication. By the way, Hal didn't say it. One of the reasons that we don't do lots of it, we're very busy. At the bottom end of the scope, we're very busy.
Great responses. We've got another question over there.
Hi, Hayley Jarrick from the Supply Chain Sustainability School. I have a question asking about what you're doing to prevent some of these things in your own organisation. So we talked about extended product responsibility. A lot of the manufacturers out there are doing life cycle assessment work, measuring the environmental impact through the entire use phase, producing those as EPDs. So I was just wondering, what are you guys doing within your own organisations at the procurement end to actually increase demand for these types of services and products? And then what could we all be doing to follow by example?
Yes, the pull-through procurement conversation, it's an interesting one. What we're doing is we're focusing on doing what we do. Part of our green ceramics program is to offer 100% return. We'll create products that you can use, and when you finish with them, you bring them back free of charge, and we turn them into wonderful other products. But in the procurement space, that's not my speciality. I'd like to see it expand. With our glass plant, there was a traditional use for recycled crushed glass, sand and aggregate. We did it slightly different. We applied for the pull-through from all sources, just not our own organisation. And that seems to be very successful. But again, I don't think you can do enough of it, really. We really need to get out there and see what's available. And yeah, as a community leader and a community-based group, we need to lead. And I hope that residents of Shoalhaven appreciate what we do, because we try very hard in that exact space.
Just some more real-life examples. As we know, we're the board group, but state government, federal government are now putting their procurement guidelines that you can, they want recycled content in their partitions, their kitchens, their cabinets, and we as a company love that. We want that to come faster, because companies like us that are quite innovative, we, at the moment what we do also is we've got almost 2,000 kitchen makers in New South Wales alone. We set up a system for them as part of the life cycle process. We've redesigned the kitchen, so you've got a melamine top, so it's paper and minimal glue, and that can be recirculated and made into a product. The customers, we put front lift bins in their factory, so it doesn't get mixed with the Violis and the Cleanaways waste and go to a recycling facility, it gets mixed with stuff and it costs a lot more money. So we put that there, so when we put that back into our facilities, so it's clean timber, not all of it, but the majority of it's clean. And then we are waiting for these guidelines to come in where the bigger facilities and the bigger companies and bigger councils and state and federal will put in their guidelines that you have to buy a recycled content and you have to have a sort of a circular economy, what you're talking about before, a rating system. And when that comes in, that'll spur other companies to start doing the right processes, because otherwise, if you don't do that, it's not going to happen. So it's very interesting from our perspective that we can't wait for that stuff to happen. It is happening slowly, but it's not fast enough, because we've got to act. And I said this before, I think as a generation, as a community, the waste sector, I think we're a bit lazy. I think I built a waste facility at Port Macquarie 20 years ago where we did food waste, organics, biosolids. That was 20 years ago, and I sit here now getting older and thinking, things just aren't happening fast enough. We sit here and talk and it's great, but we have to go back and look at what we do as a job, look at who we are as people, look who we are as an organisation, go, how do we drive this? How do we get better communications? EPA, we deal with the EPA and the Department of Planning. We're a private company. We go to buy a facility and build a facility. It's taken us 6 months to get some variations in our licence. And as a private, and my boss that owns the company, he's just flabbergasted how long these things take. So I think we need to really walk away from a conference like this and go, how do I make a difference? How do I fast tune my organisation and try and get some productiveness happening?
Thanks, Aaron. It's such a good point, that agility to move is often met with a lot of barriers when it comes to recycled content. Got a question down here.
David Burns from Epoch Enviro. A question on recycling. What needs to be done to make sure that known and unknown chemical contamination that might be in the recycled content doesn't then go as an input into a new product and we just spread more contamination out into the community when it's known and unknown?
I think this speaks to, Vina, what you were saying before, which is that you can't just wait until it gets to the recycling stage. It's too late by then. You have to look at it from the product design stage and from the regulatory perspective as well. So what products, what chemicals are we allowing to be put into the environment? And when I say the environment, I mean this, like what's in my clothes, what's in this cup, all of those things. Dealing with it by the time it gets to recycling is too late. So, yeah, I don't know if anyone else wants to.
I guess a simple analogy would be to look at, how particular we are about chemicals that go into our food, right? I mean, all the labels actually tell us the kinds of additives that go into our food, and we then make choices accordingly. I wish with all the products made, whether locally in Australia or overseas, it should literally have a label that says all the ingredients that went into making it. And if there are some toxic elements, then if people do declare that, then we as consumers can make those choices and say, well, wait a minute, what is this chemical? And then maybe we kind of slow down our consumption, go back, do your homework and go, just like you would in terms of food, right? That you want to know what you're putting into your body is safe. In the same way, what furniture you bring into your homes or what clothes you decide to purchase. If you knew what kind of additives were put into any product, I think to me, that's got to be the next step, that complete transparency in the supply chain, so you don't end up kind of thinking, oh yeah, this is lovely, this is just, polyester, and that's fine, I mean, I'm sure there are probably a whole heap of other additives and things that get added on that, we may or may not know. So, what are some of the additives that go into products? I think to me, that then allows all of us to make the right choices, so then you stop that contamination really spreading out. And I guess, I mean, we know now after many, many years, so many different products have got some contaminants or things that are not good for our health. So, why not all of us make choices? But to do that, we need to have the knowledge and information. And if not on the product, then at least retailers and manufacturers should put information on their website. So you should be able to go in and search, hey, I'm purchasing item X. Where is it made? What does it contain? Is this good enough for me to bring into my home or not? Yeah.
I might add to it and just say that, like this, I guess, concept of research, independently researching, the eco health, preferable benefits of products through third-party certification. It's not a new thing. It's been pretty niche, but for the last 20 years, through the rise of Green Star and kind of your best practice in the built environment, there's a slew of companies out there that have gone through their LCAs or EPDs or deep dives, and there's a ton of information about that, and there's a ton of companies that are actually committed to that. So it's that kind of thing. I know we go back to the third-party certification, but there's existing companies out there that do that, and that can totally be built upon, and that information is available. But also just wanted to say, yes, it's necessary to have some guidance on crap in, crap out, but at the same time, I hope that the regulators, we talked yesterday about end of waste, something we all kind of talk about. So if we get too hung up on what's in everything, then suddenly we're still hamstrung to be able to actually deal with products and materials as inputs of new products and materials. So there's a balancing act there about, I think, not going too far down the rabbit hole to stymie ourselves and be like, everything's got to go to landfill, to be able to put some boundaries around that end of waste so we can move on.
Great, thank you. I think we've got a question down here.
Hi, Candice Myers from Keenaway. You spoke, a couple of you mentioned the word behavioural change earlier. What are we doing in the circular economy to really affect behavioural change? And behavioural change should be based on scientific frameworks. It's not just a fancy marketing campaign. So who's going to pay for it? It's an expensive, lengthy process. And who is going to stump up the cash? Because what we're finding is education, just in general in the waste industry, is just this fluffy puff piece on the end. And we don't put a lot of effort into education. I don't like the word because I think it's more than education. We need to engage our councils and our residents and that. So how do we ensure that if we're going to do behavioural change, it's consistent across the entire country? I'm from Perth. Obviously, things are very different there to here because we all Perth just operates in its own little bubble, doesn't it? But we need consistency across the country. We all need to be saying the same thing. Who's going to spearhead this and who's going to fund this? The government has already stumped up a huge amount of cash for infrastructure. And when I asked a representative, I said, and where's the education budget? And he just looked at me as if, I'd grown another head, because it doesn't feature. We want people to do the right thing and use our facilities, don't contaminate. But if they don't change their behaviours and we don't prompt them to, then the facilities aren't going to be utilised to, best practice. So, I love these panels, but I'd really like more on how we're going to get the consumers to do the right thing.
Yeah, I've got a really good example of exactly this. So for those of you who read every line of the budget that came out earlier this week, the eagle-eyed would have seen that there's a line in there from the Commonwealth Government, which is $10 million for a nationwide campaign on food waste prevention. And that is the starting point for a co-funded model. And I think the answer who pays for it is essentially everyone pays for it. And that commitment by the federal government is off the back of a piece of work that Fight Food Waste did to present the business case for consumer behaviour change. So we all waste about 1 in 5 bags of groceries every week. We spend about $2,200 to $2,700 a year on food that then gets thrown away that could have been eaten. And this is a huge problem. So it's great that we have FOGO collections and that food goes to composting, but we absolutely need to be thinking about what that prevention piece is. And so the model for that campaign is that the federal government jumps first. They say, okay, we'll step up, we're going to put $10 million in. And off the back of that, the state governments then see, oh, so the federal government has committed to it, we are going to commit budget from our funding towards delivering on that campaign. We are then also going to support our local governments to support that campaign, and not just pushing it all down onto local governments, because most local governments have got 1/8 of a person who does all of the comms work. So really helping to support that. And then the other critical kind of slice of the pie is industry. So how does the food industry also step up to provide support on that? So for those of you who heard Mark's panel yesterday, like Goodman Fielder's recycling campaign is a classic example. So they're saying, use your leftovers, make them into a delicious meal. So how do we take interventions like that and really boost them so you've got a nationally consistent message that everyone is receiving, that is really kind of sticky and catchy and gets, helps people to remember what they're doing, but also provides really practical, easy actions for people to take. So writing a shopping list before you go shopping, snapping a quick picture of what's in your fridge or in your pantry before you go to the grocery store. So it's that collective model for the funding and for the delivery that I think is really critical. But the other piece of it that's really important is that you also have to change the context in which people are behaving. So asking people to do something differently when where they go and what they do and the stores they shop in don't facilitate that, you're wasting your time and you're wasting your money. So that's why in this example, also working with the food industry to say, for example, how do we have better standardization of date labels? So at the minute you can go into a store and you can see, so I might pick like 5 different brands of cheese out of the chiller. One will have a best before, one will have a use by, one might have both. Same product, completely inconsistent labeling. So just to give you a little tip, best before is about food quality. It is safe to eat a product after the best before date. You don't have to throw it away. Use by is about food safety. Don't eat it after the use by date. But how do we get consistency so that when you're campaigning to people and saying, you can safely eat this food after the best before date, but someone's got 2 things of cheese in their fridge and they're like, one's got a best before, one's got a use by. It's really confusing. So you've got to change that context in which people are behaving to give yourself the best chance of success of delivering that behaviour change.
Thanks, Claire. It's a really good point. Aaron, did you want to add to that?
I was going to talk about FOGO in circularity purposes because there's a big elephant in the room at the moment. I've had a lot of experience with FOGO. Talking about how you send the message, who's going to pay for the message. This mandate by 2030 to have councils have FOGO, and number one, it's going to cost a lot more money for councils because it has to go in vessel. It's got to get undercover. Then number 2, you got the messaging to multi councils throughout New South Wales, and if it's not consistent, there's going to be a disaster. At the moment, green waste is a very clean product, beautiful product, goes in agriculture, horticulture, does have microplastics in it, and they are dealing with that, and slowly. But you add a food element to it, with a lot of cross-sections of community, with not consistent messages, you're going to have 600,000 tonne of green waste contaminated, And then 20% of that will end up in landfill because 20% will be full of plastics, and the likes of Australian Native Landscapes, Soilco, they put a price up for $120 a tonne. They have to deal with it at the end, and then they have to deal with an extra 20% going to landfill. So to answer your question, I think state government, when it comes to FOGO, there should be very consistent messaging, and if federal are going to do it, there's got to be an overarching federal consistent message, because individual councils, like you're saying before, there might be 1/8 of a person or 2 people working in marketing or in the waste sector. They're not going to get around to the community. It's not going to happen. So that's a very good question. I don't have the answer, but I think the state government should take a lead role in that, EPA as well on that.
Thanks, Aaron. And in Victoria, we do have a bit of a bin harmonisation project underway, which really helps because being in council, some of our residents might move across the street and suddenly the ins and outs change, and that is an ongoing challenge in terms of behaviour change and contamination management. I think we've got a question.
Good morning, This is Tara from the Australian Marine Conservation Society. We have a number of problematic materials in our economy at the moment. How do we deal with those materials without ensuring that we create systems that require those materials going forward to be viable? How do we strike a balance, and how quickly can we move? Sorry, so we have a number of problematic materials in our economy at the moment, such as soft plastics, for example. How do we deal with those materials now while ensuring that we don't create systems that are entrenched that require those materials going forward? And how quickly can we move?
Good question. Who wants to pick that one up?
I think there's a really important difference to make between materials or chemicals that are toxic or that are persistent in the environment or are a safety issue, and materials which we term problematic, like soft plastics. Soft plastics in themselves are not problematic. They do actually a really good job of protecting the products that are in them. What's problematic is that we don't have a system which effectively captures and recycles them. So, and this comes back to this whole idea of the design piece of thinking about what's the end of life of this product before I put it on the market? What's the use of this product? And what's the material that is best going to deliver that use? And what other criteria am I also thinking about? Environmental performance, life cycle analysis, carbon emissions. Bread bags are made of soft plastics. That is categorically the best thing for a bread bag to be made of. But the problem is we don't have a system that then effectively captures and recycles that. But from an environmental perspective, you still should be using that soft plastics. Bread's got a lot of water in it. You put it in a paper bag, you've got to coat the inside of that paper bag with plastic. And then you've got a multiple layer product that's even more problematic to deal with. So I think there's a balancing act. There categorically are some things that are in products that we should be getting rid of and not embedding that into our infrastructure. But there's also a bunch of stuff where we should be thinking, well, actually, that's the best product for the job, so how do we keep it in use for longer, but then make sure it goes back into circulation at the end of its life?
I like chucking a few curveballs, but how did that happen? How did the soft plastics end up in warehouses all throughout Australia, all throughout New South Wales, when you've got the Woolworths and the Coles having their checklist, checks and balances, this material going somewhere, trying to follow the flow? How does it end up in a warehouse and we find out 2 years later? I find that very hard as a private business person not to understand. Where's the checks and balances in all that?
Hi, my name's Gail from Regroup. One of the issues we've got, I guess, running MRFs and with a circular economy is that we've got companies now saying, oh, we're going to change our packaging, such as, toothpaste. We're going to make it out of HDPE, so it's recyclable. Now, and then saying to, people, well, you can ask your council where you can put that. So they actually haven't come up with what they're going to do with it. And then they say, oh, well, you could probably put it in the recycling bin, and then we go, okay, but it's probably going to fall through the hole in a trommel and end up in waste. Or you've got other companies now looking at their supply chain, big companies that sell household goods. They're coming to us saying, oh, we've got this particular kids' toy item. We want to look at how that could go in the curbside recycling bin. We're going to make it out of HDPE, so it's recyclable. But it's going to, again, fall through a trommel and end up in waste. Or it could be picked up. But look, the thing is they're going to redesign it so it can go through it. They want to redesign it to go through a trommel or to go through a particular, system in a MRF. But the point is, I guess, is that there's going to be more pressure now by companies trying to become circular and thinking about how their materials are going to be recycled. And I'd say, okay, go to TerraCycle because, they can take those problematic materials, but they're not really set up for that. They're a small player in a big market of household goods. So I think it's the pressure's going to start coming more and more by companies who are looking for that solution. What are they doing internationally? Because one of the things I was thinking is you need a dedicated household goods MRF, not a curbside MRF. Our systems aren't set up for that sort of material.
Yeah, no, it's a really great question. And that difference between recyclable and recycled is huge. And I'm sure the fellow panel members will answer this better than me. But for me, the critical thing is when we talk about that design piece, it's not design in isolation from the rest of the system. You have to have that whole supply chain collaboration. And that's not just your supply chain for your retailers and your customers, it's the whole piece, right? So talking to the MRF operators, talking to local councils who are at the front end of dealing with that material and figuring out why are people putting this in their recycling bin. It's theoretically recyclable, but it's never actually going to get recycled. So those conversations, I think, are really critical. And I think the challenge is you can talk about it at a really sweeping level and talk about products or, fast-moving consumer goods, but actually the reality is you've got to go down to kind of sector level to really start having sensible conversations about product design, because good product design for clothing looks completely different for good product design for packaging versus for toys versus, any of these other products. So that sector level collaboration is critical for me. And that's why I think product stewardship and EPR is a really great mechanism, because what that drives is a kind of central hub or central facilitator for that conversation that allows you to come together in pre-competitive collaboration. So you're avoiding any of that market distortion or accusations of market distortion, but you're really coming together to say, we can't fix this problem by ourselves, one company. You've got to do it collectively.
Yeah, I agree. I just might add to that. I mean, look, I know we can't have EPR for everything, but I think there's a potential meet in the middle for obviously more EPR, and the sector-specific way is a really good model. But I'd also like to challenge MRFs that also, in your bycatch, in your whatever, I'm not saying, little things are going to fall through, obviously, but, your mixed plastics line, the laundry baskets, all the stuff that, that you're already getting, the toys, the widgets, some EPR, some money in the system, some off-takes for that. I think that's still where big challenges are found from MRF operators, is big piles of mixed plastic. So being able to make the most from a council point of view from your yellow bin real estate and the investment to go collect all that stuff. We would love for more stuff to be able to be captured that way, that could be recycled, albeit not through your traditional kind of HDPE and PET lines that you're running. But if you can get it into the MRF and you can pull it out, we're paying a tonnage rate for that. If there can be off-takers for that, and we're cycling a bit of this right now. But going forward, those piles, you got it there. It is captured. It's messy. It's mixed. But working with that fraction in MRFs and being able to direct stuff, I guess, that way maybe with some EPR money, from a systems approach, looking at the solution. I'd say that could be a starting point.
Yeah, so I agree with Hal there. It's so two things. Other countries, and I'll use the European example, is that they're looking at polymer harmonisation is a very big thing at the moment, and that is to reduce the amount of different polymers or different types of plastic. Secondly, it's also an effort in technology space. We're currently designing and building some facilities that do that exact thing. We're looking at what the technology can bring to that piece, and it doesn't really care if it's a bottle or a toy, and then also what traditions of MRFing, or MRFs were at. We've worked with our partners. We look into the next layer, do that efficiently and effectively. But yeah, polymer harmonisation, even down to polymer identification, the micro identification is well advanced in other parts of the world, Asia and Europe. I think it's only a matter of time when we catch up.
Thank you all. I'm just conscious of time and I don't want to keep between you and morning tea. So I might wrap it up there, but I'd like you to thank our wonderful panel for their frank and honest views.